Markets opened this morning in full panic mode. Stocks are sliding, oil prices are surging past $95 a barrel, and the Persian Gulf is once again on the edge of something catastrophic. The United States and Iran are locked in a dangerous standoff over the Strait of Hormuz, one of the most strategically critical waterways on the planet. And what makes this moment so volatile is that a ceasefire, one that was supposed to be holding, is now hanging by a thread with just 2 days left on the clock. This is not background noise. This is not political theater. This is a real military and economic crisis unfolding in real time, and the decisions being made right now, or not being made, will affect every single one of us. Before we dive deep into what is actually happening and why it matters, a quick word. If this kind of straight, no-spin breakdown is valuable to you, do me a favor and hit the like button, subscribe, and ring that notification bell before you leave. It helps more people find this content, and honestly, right now, more people need to be paying attention to what is going on in the Persian Gulf. Okay? With that said, let us get into it, because the details here are absolutely critical to understanding just how dangerous and frankly how mismanaged this entire situation has become over the past several weeks. Now, the source for much of what we are discussing today is not some left-wing outlet. This is the Wall Street Journal, one of the most respected, conservative-leaning financial publications in the world, and a cousin publication to Fox News. These are people who want Donald Trump to succeed. They are not rooting against him. So when they run a headline that reads, "Stock market today, oil prices climb on fresh tensions in the Persian Gulf," and their reporting paints a picture of chaos and miscalculation, that should tell you something. This is not partisan spin. This is the financial press sounding the alarm because real money is being lost and real risks are escalating by the hour. Here is what the Wall Street Journal is reporting. Brent crude futures are up more than 5% this morning, trading around $95 a barrel. Now that might sound manageable compared to the $120 per barrel we saw during the peak of this conflict, but do not let the relative calm of that number fool you. $95 a barrel is still historically elevated, and what that means for ordinary Americans is simple. Gas prices are going back up. Investors are, in the words of the Journal, dusting off their wartime playbooks. That phrase alone should send a chill down your spine. These are seasoned financial professionals, and they are preparing for the possibility that this does not end quietly or quickly. Layered on top of the war tension and the market volatility is another story that is not getting nearly enough attention. And it should be. Tomorrow, Kevin Warsh is scheduled to testify before Congress as Trump's nominee to replace Jerome Powell as chair of the Federal Reserve. This is the person who would potentially control American monetary policy, interest rates, inflation responses, the entire architecture of the U.S. economy at one of the most turbulent moments in recent memory. But here is the problem. Republican Senator Thom Tillis from North Carolina has publicly threatened to single-handedly block Warsh's confirmation. Tillis says he will not allow the nomination to move forward as long as there is any ongoing investigation into Jerome Powell. That is a significant wrench in the gears. It means this nomination could be dead before it ever truly begins. A spectacular, time-consuming distraction at a moment when the administration needs to be focused on a shooting war. At the same time, stocks are slipping across the board. Just last Friday, markets were riding a wave of cautious optimism after Iran announced that the Strait of Hormuz was, quote, completely open. That optimism has now evaporated almost entirely. U.S. negotiators are expected to travel to Pakistan for talks, with Islamabad serving as the neutral ground for diplomacy. But here is the problem. Iran has already cast serious doubt on whether they will even show up. And layered on top of all of this, Trump took to social media this week to threaten attacks on Iranian infrastructure if a deal is not reached. That is not diplomacy. That is an ultimatum delivered via social media while the world watches and waits. Here is a detail that tells you everything you need to know about how badly this situation has deteriorated politically. The National Review, not a liberal publication, not a centrist outlet, but one of the flagship conservative intellectual magazines in the United States, historically more pro-Trump than even the Wall Street Journal, their editorial board published a piece in the last several hours effectively dismissing the idea that any real deal exists. Their words, not mine. Despite the highly variable mood music around the Iran war, driven by Trump's ever-changing statements, we are essentially in the same place we were 2 weeks ago. They blame Iran. I think the evidence suggests that blame belongs primarily elsewhere. But the fact that the National Review is saying out loud that there is no real deal, that this is mood music, not substance, that is a devastating verdict from inside the conservative tent. Then there is the J.D. Vance situation. And honestly, it would be almost comedic if the stakes were not so dangerously high. Pakistan has been chosen as the neutral ground for negotiations, with Islamabad serving as the venue. Vance led the last round of talks, which lasted 22 hours and produced essentially nothing. He reportedly walked away frustrated and empty-handed. Now there is a question of whether he is going back for another round. Trump said this morning that Vance is on his way to Islamabad, except earlier Trump had said the Secret Service deemed it too dangerous for Vance to travel there. Then the White House contradicted that. Then independent reporting suggested Vance had not actually left yet. So within a single morning, the President of the United States gave 3 different accounts of whether his own Vice President was on a plane to a peace negotiation. That is not a communications problem. That is a command and control problem. And even if Vance does show up in Islamabad, there is a fundamental structural problem with these negotiations that has nothing to do with venue or personality. According to reporting from multiple outlets, Trump has instructed his negotiating team not to make any major concessions because in Trump's framing, concessions equal weakness. But here is the thing about negotiations that anyone who has ever sat across a table from another human being understands intuitively. If you are not willing to give anything, you are not negotiating. You are demanding a surrender. And Iran, despite being massively outgunned militarily, has so far refused to simply surrender. They may eventually reach a breaking point. Military asymmetry is real and it has consequences, but they have not broken yet. And as long as the United States walks into the room with a posture of total domination and zero flexibility, there will be no deal. There will only be more seized ships. There is one more thing that needs to be said, clearly and without apology, because it keeps getting buried under the day-to-day chaos of new developments. This war was a war of choice. Donald Trump chose to initiate this conflict. He was not responding to an imminent attack on American soil. He was not acting under congressional authorization. He made a decision, and that decision set off a chain of events that has now produced a naval blockade, a fired-upon cargo ship, a collapsed ceasefire, $95 oil, and a stock market in retreat. And yet, there is a significant portion of the pro-Trump media ecosystem that is now trying to frame any temporary de-escalation as proof of Trump's genius, as evidence of the art of the deal in action. Clay Travis was doing it just last week when the ceasefire was announced, and now, within days, that ceasefire has disintegrated, oil is spiking again, and those same voices have gone very quiet. So, here's where things stand right now, as clearly as they can be stated. The Strait of Hormuz is functionally closed. Oil is at $95 a barrel and climbing. A US destroyer has fired on and seized an Iranian vessel during a supposed ceasefire. The Federal Reserve Chair nomination is in jeopardy. Peace talks in Islamabad may or may not happen, with a US team that may or may not include J.D. Vance, negotiating with an Iranian government that may or may not show up. And the man at the center of all of it is simultaneously starting fires and claiming credit for the smoke clearing. This situation is moving fast, and we will keep tracking it as it develops. If this breakdown was useful to you, if it gave you context that the headline coverage is missing, hit the like button, subscribe if you have not already, and turn on the notification bell so you do not miss the next update. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think a real deal is possible?